What's up, ladies and gentlemen? It is Monday night, which typically means we've got a Nothing But Rant show for you. Normally, we got a Nothing But Rant show from you. Obviously, a show where I come in here and just lay flamethrowers to this entire set with all my delicious hot takes. Before we get tonight's show started, there's a member of our community, and a major member of our community goes by the name of SSL. He's going through some things right now in his life, and I just wanted to take the time out before we get anywhere else tonight's show and let him know that as a community, our Patreon, party or whatever you want to call it, our Discord family is here and in supportive of you, SSL. So if you ever need anything, you know who to call, you know who to hit up. We appreciate you, brother, and we look forward to having you back around in our Discord chats on the daily. And of course, on our MBR show, SSL is one of our best callers that we've ever had here on this show, this platform, and we're very thankful for him, and our hearts go out to him right now during a difficult time. So, with all that being said, we do have a great show lined up for you tonight. 2021 is the return of the Cupcake football games in college football, and I know there's a lot of people that talk about how, I loved the all-SEC schedule. Got a little bit spoiled with that 2020 all-conference schedule, and in 2021, as it looks right now, these Cupcake games are coming back, which means UAB, which means Charleston Southern are going to line it up between the hedges and get a 50 spot put on them by the Georgia Bulldogs. And I'll tell you why that's not only good for college football, but good for Georgia as well. Of course, we got football Q for BA. That's right, a football question for Brooks Austin. If you want to get in on this, hit up football Q, the letter Q, 4BA at gmail.com. We will be addressing your questions. Tonight we're going to hit two of them from Jordan and our boy Preston. Preston, a repeat appearance here on some of the questions. Some of those questions over on football Q for BA, we're going to save for a little bit later. We got a little bit of more technology up in this studio to show things just a little bit better. So hold off on those, guys. If I haven't gotten to your questions, we're getting to them. I promise you, they will not be missed. There's not a question in there except for, hey, who do you like tonight, Alabama or Ohio State? Not answering those. That's not what the Gmail account is for. The Gmail account is for genuine football questions, things about the game of football that you've wondered for years and years, yet to not have been given an answer like we did last week with how plays are signaled in. Tonight, we will address some of those football questions that we've had over on the email account. I'm going to talk about some recruiting misses. Last week, we talked about what we call the trickle-down effect in college football in the world of recruiting. This week, we're going to talk about how some of these top Power 5 programs are going to be missing on some kids and missing bigly on some of these kids tonight. And then we'll get into what Florida's doing in their new recruiting tactics and whether or not they're sustainable and whether or not they will work moving forward and down on the line. I told you, the return of the Cupcake game, I think it's great for college football, and it's great for college football for two reasons. It keeps the mid-major level programs afloat, man. These games that UAB and Charleston Southern are going to Athens to play this year, they pretty much fund that program for the foreseeable future. We'll talk a little bit about that here in a second. And secondly, it's great for these Power 5 programs. As much as people hate watching them, it's great for your program, for the University of Georgia, to play these to play these programs, and I'll tell you a little bit about that here in just a second again. So let's start with why, obviously, it's great for these mid-major programs. It keeps them afloat. Well, look no further than 2021 schedule for the University of Georgia. San Jose State got a $1.8 million buyout on their home and away series that they were going to play with Georgia. Georgia said, we want to go play Clemson. We've got you scheduled for this weekend. We're going to give you $1.8 million. Do you just want to take it anyways and not travel over here and get your brains beat in by the dogs inside the, between the hedges? Yes, that's a great idea. I will take your almost $2 million and go build something new on my facility. Savannah State is the most premier example of this. For those of you who don't remember, Savannah State's been a touch-and-go program for a long time. And what I mean by touch-and-go, I mean literally like some decades they don't have a football program, and then they start it back. They just recently started it back in 2010. Started the program, took a year in 2011 to practice, and in 2012, they started their first football season in Division I mid-major level, in that MEAC conference, right? Down here in the Southeast. And what did they do in 2012 to restart, to jumpstart their program? Their first football game ever as a pro, not ever, their first football game in decades as a program down there at Savannah State. Do you know who they played? They went out to Oklahoma State and got beat 85-0. 85-0. Why? For a check. They were starting their program back. They needed an influx of cash. So who do they call? They call the biggest booster in college football over there at Oklahoma State and say, yeah, we'll take your money to take that beating. They got beat 85-0. To me, it is the worst score that I've seen in recent memory of college football. We haven't seen anything like that in modern football recently. Okay, yeah, you might get a 73-0. You might 85. 85-0. They about put a hundo up on them boys out there at Oklahoma State. So you build your program this way. You get an influx of cash. Savannah State didn't stop there either. The very next week, they went to Tallahassee and played Florida State. They were down 55-0. 55-0 midway through the third quarter when, thank God, lightning came. Thank God lightning came and delayed that football game the rest of the time, and they ended up canceling it and giving Florida State the win because God only knows how bad that one would have got. They scored damn near 50 in the first half of that football game. So it was ugly for Savannah State, but guess what? They didn't have to play any more of those Cupcake games. They still haven't. They might sprinkle in one every 3 or 4 years nowadays, but that's what the basis of their program was. They're reasonably new facilities on campus. They're new weight rooms and stuff like that. New jerseys, recruiting budgets to go out and get better players. Guess where that came from? It came straight from Oklahoma State. It came straight from Florida State. It is great for these mid-major programs. Yes, you go up there and you get your brains beat in, but you get a check for it, and it provides an opportunity for guys like, I can't believe I just blanked on his name, the kid from UMass, Andy Isabella. It provides opportunities for him to catch a 60-yard touchdown pass in Sanford Stadium against Georgia, first game of the year, one of the first games of the year, and then all of a sudden people are talking about him. And they're like, oh, who's this white kid from UMass that can absolutely burn? We knew he was fast, but now he's going out and burning SEC defenses? He must be NFL fast. And guess what? He's a third-round draft pick. He's a third-round draft pick to Arizona, not solely because of that game. He had a great career at UMass, but that was a jumping point for that young man. So it's great for the programs. It's great for the mid-major programs. It flushes them with cash. It's also great for them in the sense that their players get some real exposure that otherwise they would have never had. They would not have had that type of exposure without that opportunity to play those football games. And it provides opportunities for guys that, might have been mid-major caliber football players that grew up in the state of Georgia and went to Charleston Southern or went to UAB, and all they ever dreamed about was playing inside Sanford Stadium, playing for Georgia. But the closest thing they can do to get to that, if they're not an SEC caliber football player, if they're not a Power 5 caliber football player, is to go to one of these mid-majors and have an opportunity once every 3 years, UT Chattanooga, to go get your brains beat in by Alabama. It gives you the opportunity, Florida A&M, to every once in a while go down to Gainesville and get your brains beat in by Florida. And every once in a while, you get the Cinderella story of App State beating Michigan, of Jacksonville State beating Ole Miss. Every once in a while, you get that opportunity to have those types of football games. And guys, there are better storylines, but when it comes to first week of the college football season, there's no better storyline than an SEC program or a Power 5 program losing to a mid-major program. It's electric. It's something that we hear about, right? Upset alert. You see it all over your Twitter timelines. And then boom, you're turning over and watching a grambling Tennessee game that otherwise you would not be watching. Or a Georgia State-Tennessee game that otherwise you would not be watching. By the way, I believe Tennessee is the only school in the last 2 years to lose, when they had Cupcake Games, to lose one of these football games. So more oftentimes than not, these SEC programs are walking through these football games, which goes into our next point as to why it's good for these Power 5 programs. Look, Georgia's incoming freshman class, every single year, barring injury, when there's these quote-unquote Cupcake Games on the schedule, they get opportunities to play. Go look at that 2019 signing class and look through their playing records as a freshman. Almost every single one of them played against Murray State. Almost every single one of them played against Arkansas State, I believe it was. Every single one of them. And for the better part of the last couple of years, Georgia Tech's turned into one of these Cupcake Games as an out-of-conference game. So you get an opportunity to play your young guys, which nowadays, when the NCAA provides that 4-year game cushion as a freshman to get that red shirt, you can play in up to 4 contests now in college football and still maintain your red shirt ability. It's vital for those guys to get an opportunity to get playing time. And not only for the freshmen, it's vital for guys like Channing Tindall, who this year, until he was absolutely needed, really didn't get an opportunity to play. He got some mop-up duty against Tennessee. He played a lot or a good bit in the bowl game, played a lot in against Missouri when they had a comfortable lead in that football game. So every once in a while, these guys will get to play. Auburn, these guys get to play, but it's guaranteed opportunities for those guys to play. And not only that, it's an opportunity for starters to rest as well. Playing 4 quarters against playing 2 quarters, there's a big difference there, guys. Shocker, right? Spoiler alert. It is a huge difference to be able to go into a second half and know Andrew Thomas or know Isaiah Wilson or know Jake Fromm that you don't have to play in the second half of those football games, or know JT Daniels that you don't have to play in the second half of the game against UAB. Brock Vandegrift, Carson Beck, Stetson Bennett are going to get an opportunity to get meaningful reps in a football game in a live action scenario where people are coming after them and trying to hit them. So it's vital. It's very, very vital to the sport of college football. And I know, again, the easy take is to go to Twitter or to go to ESPN or to go wherever you have a platform as a media person and say, oh, I hate watching Georgia beat the dog crap out of somebody, a mid-major program in these Cupcake Games. Well, take a realistic look at things, guys. If they didn't have them, you probably wouldn't have mid-major programs, right? You wouldn't have College Game Day going to Coastal Carolina because Coastal Carolina might not exist in terms of Division I football. If you remove the Cupcake Games, if you remove these out-of-conference tune-up games, you might as well remove mid-majors. You might as well send them all down to the FCS and let them play with North Dakota State every year. That's what you might as well do because you're cutting out their life source. Their life source, how they feed their program, is that income from those out-of-conference tune-up games. It is that $1.8 million that San Jose got gifted this year for not even playing Georgia. Okay? And yeah, would they have liked to make the travel all the way across the country and play the Dogs? Probably. But is it probably a better look that they get to do whatever they wanted with the money without taking the beating? Yeah, I'd say it's probably a good idea. It's not usual. It's not typical. Now, I haven't seen anybody else get rid of a tune-up game to go schedule Clemson in a neutral site game. Doesn't happen very often. Most of the time when these games get on the schedule, they stay on the schedule because they need to be on the schedule. I know it's boring. I know it makes one of your, as a season ticket holders, 2 of your home games for the University of Georgia, UAB, and Charleston Southern. I know you don't want to do that. I get it. I know you would rather watch somebody else that's a Power 5 program. But realistically, that's not going to happen, okay? Not anytime soon. And Georgia, of all programs, does a better job about scheduling tough out-of-conference opponents than anybody else, really. I mean, you're going to get Oklahoma in a home-and-home this year. You're going to get Clemson in 2 neutral site games, one in Charlotte, one in Atlanta. You're going to get Ohio State in 2029 and 31. You're going to get Texas. You're going to get there's a couple more others in there. I believe you might have a game against USC. I don't know. I'm drawing blanks. It's a decade worth of out-of-conference games that you're going to get. You're going to get Georgia playing against premier programs, so be happy when you get it. But also, when Charleston Southern comes to town to get thumped up on, understand that there's a reason and a necessity for it, and it's not just to save the mid-major programs. It's to get opportunities for young guys to play that otherwise wouldn't have. It's to get them an opportunity to chase some development. It's so Kirby Smart can go into anybody's room and say, I played 67 guys on defense last year. Well, yeah, Kirby, because you played about 40 against Charleston Southern this year, and you played about 45 against UAB. But, hey, it's going to look good, and it's going to sound even better when he has the ability to do it. And if he doesn't have these tune-up games, he can't go sell that. He can't go sell that to everyone because it's not true. If he has to play a 10-game conference schedule every single year, he's not going to get an opportunity to play those young guys. All right, so let me lube up the vocal cords here a little bit. Drank coffee too close to the show tonight, and now I got a cotton mouth. Got real dry mouth tonight. Football questions for BA. Again, this is footballq4ba@gmail.com. Now, Jordan asked a question about defensive line stances. This one comes directly off of our Trayvon Walker film study. He saw Trayvon doing what I think he called a frog stance, where he's real squat and heavy, and he's got two hands down on the ground. There's the stand-up edge stance that we're going to talk about a little bit tonight. There's a balance stance, and there's a get after the passer stance as a defensive lineman. They're all used for different scenarios. They're all used for different reasons, and I'm going to try to walk you through that tonight. We experimented, the Lord of the Dings and I experimented with moving the camera back, trying to get a full body shot of me. We're not quite ready for that yet. We will get there. We got some tuning up to do, and that's okay. You guys will follow along with the journey with us. So I'll do my best to explain this, with just my hands basically and just standing here. So now that squatted defensive line stance, right, where both hands are on the ground, the butt's real flat, the back's real flat, and they're real neutral. Okay, when Georgia plays that, their defensive ends play that, there's a reason. And it's because they want the ability to transfer their weight side to side. So if the tackle in front of them goes to stretch outside of them or block down on them, that defensive end wants the ability to move both left and right first. They're not necessarily worried about getting off the ball. They're more reading the keys in front of them. And the best way to do that is to position the weight in your butt and sink your hips just a little bit. Bring your chest up in your stance so you have a little bit more of side-to-side mobility. It's no different if I walk up and tell you to get in a 4-point stance and put all your weight on your hands and then try to move sideways, you're not going to be able to do it. But if I walk up to you and say, now, get in a 4-point stance and put about 60% of your weight in your hips and in your feet and about 40% of your weight in your hands and now move side to side. It's going to be much easier. If you don't believe me, try it home. Okay, so that's the first stance. That real squatted, almost looks like a gorilla, the way a gorilla sits on his all fours, right? That's what we're talking about in that run stance as that 4-eye technique at the University of Georgia. Now, how about a balanced stance, right? You see a guy getting a 3-point stance and you don't really know whether he's expecting pass or he's expecting run. Odds are he doesn't know. So he's got a real balanced stance. He can play both the run and the pass. He can fight off double teams. He can get outside if he gets stretch zone. He can do whatever he wants from that balanced stance. You'll see these more typically on first and second down in college football, okay? Same thing for pro football, that balanced stance, real standard stance, okay? Now the other one, the get after the passer stance. This is what I call that 3-point stance where you're really seeing guys put a whole bunch of weight on their hand, put their butt up in the air, right? Really trying to explode off the ball. This is the pass rusher stance. You're really trying to get off the rock, right? Downset hut, we're really trying to explode out of our stance. It's almost identical to a sprinter stance. Or, better yet, have you ever seen the stances people get in 40s or on their 40-yard dash at the NFL Combine where they got all that weight rolled up on their front hand and they got that back hand stuck up? That's what defensive ends look like when they're trying to really, really, really get after the passer. I call that the get after the passer stance. Now, my last category, this is for edge rushers only. Okay, it's the stand-up edge rushing stance. Most of the time, you see the inside foot up and they're leaning in, right? Looking at the ball, trying to get off the ball really, really quickly and bend that edge. These are your speed rushers that like to use this type of stance, right? Your Von Millers, your Azeez Ojulari. Dang sure you're Adam Anderson. Okay, Adam Anderson stands up in an edge technique, rush technique like this constantly because he's trying to get off the ball. Okay, he's trying to bend the edge. He's trying to set that tackle up to open his gate so he can capture the hoop. Does that make sense? I hope I tried to explain that the best I could without a physical representation of what I'm talking about. But I think you guys got it. And if you didn't, follow up with me. Lord of the Dings, did I do a good job? You thought I did? You know nothing about football. You think I did a good job? Yeah. I'm just messing with you. He knows a little bit about football. So those are our defensive line stances. That's why you see such a varied approach of what these guys are trying to do. It's no different than when an offensive lineman squats his butt and you can tell he's pulling. Because he's got to get that butt back down to get up and pull, right? It's a dead giveaway. Offensively, you don't want to do it. Defensively, it doesn't matter. Get in whatever stance you want to win, okay? Offensively, we don't want to give our keys away like sinking our butt when we're trying to pull out of the backside on power or counter. All right, our next question. We're going to back him up. This is Preston Grace, our guy over there from the Patreon account. Again, I know I've hit Preston twice in the last 2 shows. One of you guys asked about how to notice the differences between blocking assignments and blocking schemes. I'm going to get to that, okay? I just need the board. I don't need this jersey sitting here. I need the board. And guess what, guys? The board is going to be here very, very soon. So we'll get that, and we'll answer all those in-depth questions where I actually need to be writing on some stuff instead of doing this and trying to show you with my fingers like I'm a sign language person, okay? It's not football, learning like this, football, Learning football like this is a very visual aspect. It's why we do the film studies with the film in the same shot as me. So, on to Preston's question about high school football. He's got more of a question about my operation as an evaluator. First question he asks is, how do you decide which games to go to? Well, I'll be real frank with you. I am in charge of running the entire state of Georgia. Okay? Last year, I think the state of Georgia had 160 plus SI All-American candidates. I wrote about 220 evals. I do my best to see all of those guys, or as many of them as I can, on Friday night, for a reason that we're going to talk about here shortly. I do my best to go out and see every single one of these guys. But there's only one of me. So I'll be 100% honest. I live in Gwinnett County on Friday night. I live there. It's 7A football. It's the premier conference or region in 7A football, in my opinion. And it's relatively close to me. It's about an hour and a half from me. So on Friday night, if I want to go see Marquise Groves-Killebrew, Andre Stewart, Dylan Lonergan, Trey Staley, all these guys at Brookwood, and they're playing Grayson, well, that just knocked off about 45 of my evals, to be honest with you, because Brookwood's got about 10 guys that'll be SI All-American candidates on their roster, and Grayson's got about 30. Okay, so it makes it real easy on me to say, yes, I saw that guy. I saw him here. And the other great thing about Gwinnett County is, if Grayson's up on Brookwood like they were this year, 35-7 midway through the second quarter or whatever it is right before halftime, well, guess what? Collins Hill's about 25 minutes down the road. So I can go see Sam Horn and I can go see Travis Hunter. Or if North Gwinnett's in a close game with McEachern, I can go see Sutton Smith and Bryce Archie, and I can go see Barrett Carter and Jordan Hancock in a blink of an eye. I can catch two games in one, and more times than not, both those games are going to be loaded with extreme talents. Now, every once in a while, what I'll do is, if I know I haven't been, say, to the southwest side of Atlanta at all this year, I think it's part of my job to at least make an effort to see as many kids as I can. So that's why I spend so much time at all these off-season camps. So we'll get to that in here in a second. But I'll go watch a game like East Coweta and Noonan. Because A, I know it's going to be a great football game and it about went into overtime. And B, I know there's great players there that don't really get seen. Josh Harris is a wide receiver that's going to Furman. I'm going to tell you right now, that kid's going to break every record at Furman. He's great. He's a great football player. He's 6'2", 185 pounds. Probably most people don't know about him because nobody really ventures into that southwest part of Atlanta, myself included. I don't do a good enough job of going down there. I don't do a good enough job of going to Creekside. I did go see Westlake this year against Langston Hughes. I don't do a good enough job of going all the way down to Valdosta or Lowndes. But you bet when they come up to North Georgia for a playoff game, I do everything in my power to go see that football game. So that's kind of about how I go about choosing which games I go to. Now, his next question was, how often do you see these players in practice? Well, I'll be 100% honest with you here. As a former football player, and I say that a lot, but it's true. It's where most of my opinions come from. It's where most of my background comes from. I'm a human. What I know is what I do. What I know is if I was the head coach of a high school football team, the last thing I want is some joker standing over on the sideline interviewing my best player midway through practice. I don't care if he came up and asked me. I don't care if he said, Coach, can I grab so-and-so for 5 minutes and go interview him? It's still disrupting my practice. Okay, it would still bug me. It would still irk me. So what I do is I go see him on Friday nights. I call the high school coach. I get their opinion on that guy. I ask for media credentials for Friday nights, and I don't bother him. I show up early. I take photos in pregame. I don't bother the coach or the kids because I know it's a business. They're there to win football games. So I don't try to adhere on that. I don't try to interrupt that in any form or fashion. If I want to build a relationship with a kid, I go grab him during the summer or during the spring at one of these private workouts with one of these trainers that's got 30 guys that he's training all at once, right? In that space and in that opportunity, I don't mind grabbing a kid after the workout. I don't mind grabbing a kid before the workout or maybe during a water break of the workout because it's not a team-oriented event. It is an individual-oriented event with the individual coach, who most of them I'm really, really tight with, just like I am with some of these high school coaches around here. So that's kind of my process. Don't interrupt practice. I don't like doing it. I did it once this year, felt funny over at Brookwood, and I love that coaching staff to death, but I'm not going back over there during practice. I'm not. Because, again, I know how that coach feels. That coach might smile and wave and say, thank you for coming out and showing light on my boys, but you were also a distraction today. He won't tell you that. That's how football coaches' brains work. That's how my brain works. So yeah, that's kind of that. Take another break here, guys. I'm dying tonight. I'm sorry. It's so unprofessional of me to sit here and drink water on this set. Now, we talked about the recruiting trickle-down effect last week, right? What is that? It's what I laid out in terms of numbers. We found out via numbers based off the average number of high school kids that mid-major programs, all 59 of them are signing, which is about 13.7. There's about 500 kids that in a normal recruiting cycle, without COVID, without seniors being able to come back, without transfers being able to automatically transfer in with no, having to sit out, period. 500 kids have lost the opportunity to play mid-major football. We told you that last week on NBR. We backed it up with numbers. The numbers are simple. It's simple math. They're signing about 9 fewer high school kids per mid-major. Multiply that by 59. You got about 500 kids, okay? It's a lot. It's a lot of kids getting missed on an opportunity to go play mid-major football. But there's also another effect that it's having on recruiting. And it is affected. This level of the impact is affecting major Power 5 programs, and I'll lay it out right here. Without the in-person evaluation, you're left to nothing but height, weight, speed, tape. That's it. How tall is he? How much does he weigh? How fast he run? How high does he jump? How quick is his 5'10", 5? And what was our last one? High weight, speed. That's it. High weight, speed. And maybe a little bit of a confirmation bias with some other offers, right? They track offers. They know. If Alabama offers somebody, guess what? Within the next 24 hours, everybody's going to offer that kid. Everybody. Because Alabama is the pinnacle of college football. So if they like a guy, well, Georgia should probably like the guy. If Tennessee likes the guy, then Kentucky should probably like the guy, right? They track offers, height, weight, speed, conversation. Now, here's the problem with that. First of all, it's all got to be verified. If you don't have verified measurements, you're screwed. You're taking the word of a high school coach or a kid on how tall he is, how much he weighs, and how fast he is. So you got to have verified measurements. And I'll be honest with you, I've been to a whole bunch of these camps. There's a couple of them that are doing verified measurements. The rest of them maybe aren't, okay? Because I've been there. I watched them. I watched how they track their data. I did all that. Some of them are doing it by the book. Some of them are doing it right. They're giving verified times to these college coaches. Some of them aren't, okay? Some of them aren't. So, as a recruiter, that drastically affects you. If you've got somebody telling you that a wide receiver is a 4.5 runner, when in reality he's a 4.6, 8 runner, you just might have fudged it a little bit because you like the kid, or you're higher on the kid than everybody else, or whatever the reason being is. That's a drastic mistake. That's a drastic difference in what the kid's actual athletic profile is. So you're banking on those measurements being verified, and oftentimes, more times than not, they are not. They are not accurately depicted. So that's a problem for these college recruiters. And I talk all the time, again, about in-person evaluations. Some of these kids, you'll never understand how big they are until you walk up on them. Okay, Jonquise J.Q. Hardaway, prime example. 2022 defensive back here in the state of Georgia is massive. Okay, and I knew he was tall. I knew he was long. I knew he was athletic. I went and saw him in person the other day, and beyond big. I mean, beyond big. Not like big, but big. The kid's a legit 6'4". I mean, he can tie his shoes without bending over. Got all the measurables in the world, and on tape, he just looks like a pretty big kid. In person, it's like, my God, where did you make that? Can I have 4 of them? Like, he's that big, okay? And he's that impressive. And I wouldn't have known that had I not seen him Sunday at Hustle Link's tryout. Okay, there's a bunch of guys like that. Oscar Delp, I've seen him on tape all year long. Know he's crazy athletic. But what's he look like outside of Forsyth County against legitimate Power 5 defensive backs? Well, guess what? I found that out this weekend, okay? I talked to a couple of SEC staffers this week about J.Q. Hardaway because I was blown away. And you know what the number one thing I heard from every single coach is? I need to see him in person. I got to see him in person because I can only tell him so many times that J.Q. Hardaway is 6'4" and 190 pounds, okay, and long and athletic and mobile. and fluid as an athlete. I can only tell him so many times without him, going out and seeing it for himself. So there's going to be a lot of those types of kids that are, teetering on elite Clemson, Georgia, Ohio State, Bama, okay? Elite offers and committable offers to those types of programs that might get missed on in this cycle. It's hurting them pretty drastically in this cycle in terms of a full commitment from a coaching staff because, again, they haven't seen the kid. Amarius Mims is the type of individual you'll never understand how truly large he is until you walk up on him. Broderick Jones, same thing. You will never realize how well put together Broderick Jones is until you walk up next to him and be like, whew, holy smokes. That's what 6'6", 310 pounds looks like nowadays? Yes, that's what it looks like. Okay? Avery Gilbert. Y'all have no idea what that man looks like in real life. All the hype that's around that kid is for a reason. And all you got to do is walk up and look at him and say, yep, that makes sense. But on tape, again, here's the problem with just, evaluating tape. When it comes to a program like Georgia or a program like Alabama or even Tennessee, I'm going to show you as an evaluator, you're going to be going through, 100 highlight tapes a day, 100 films a day. And at a level like that, where you're only recruiting the best of the best, well, player A might look just like player B on film. They look identical. They do the same stuff. They make the same types of plays. Their highlights grade out at A++++. Well, how do you decide if you can only take one? How do you decide? At that point, it goes back to, well, have I seen him in person in a previous recruiting cycle or previous visit? Had I had the kid on campus? And if they have, they give the nod to that kid. Whereas player B that didn't get chosen might go to, North Carolina and be a freak and be an absolute freak. And Georgia's fan base or Bama's fan base is going to be like, how'd we let this kid out of the state? How'd we let him go somewhere else? You missed it. You just missed it. And again, there are going to be misses. So what have college programs like Georgia started to do? Started pounding the state. Absolutely pounding the state. 2019 was a complete, rebranding of Georgia recruiting. They pounded out-of-state recruits. Okay, they went out and got all the studs all across the country and only about 7 in-state kids. Well, in 2020, they did about the same thing. 17 of their 25 signees were out of state. Only 8 of their signees in 2020 came from the state of Georgia because they were allowed to have the kids on campus still. COVID hadn't hit yet. Okay, the early signing window was, in December. The late signing window was in February. COVID hit in March. So the last official visits were that 2020 signing class. So it's business as usual for national name brands like Georgia, national name brands like Alabama, national name brands like Clemson. DJ Uiagalelei signed at Clemson without batting an eye because he's been on campus over and over again. He had the ability to go on campus the day before his national signing day or whatever it was. So business as usual in 2020. Now, in 2021, where the whole entire cycle has been altered by this COVID stuff, same thing for 2022. In 2021, Georgia only signed 20 signees. Now, it's a light class. Could change Wednesday, which we got some stuff coming on Terry and Arnold. Don't worry about it. Well, that's what tomorrow is going to be. Spoiler alert. We're going to be doing a live breakdown on Terry and Arnold. But in 2021, of the 20 signees, 10 of those guys were from the state of Georgia. Over half, right at half. They recruited that out-of-state portion of the recruitment cycle pretty dang well, despite all the stuff. Okay, they were still able to land some top prospects out of the state of Georgia in 2021. And in 2022, their first 7 commitments are from the state of Georgia. That is not by coincidence. Okay, they know these kids. They've seen them on campus. Tyree West been on campus a dozen times. Gunnar Stockton basically lived in Athens for years. Okay, dates Vince Dooley's granddaughter, I'm pretty sure. Pretty connected to the Georgia program, right? They're comfortable with that relationships. He's comfortable with the school. Marquise Groves-Killebrew, been on campus a whole bunch. Okay? All these kids that they're continuing to sign or continue to land in these 2021 and 2022 classes, they've been in state. They've been around the program for years. So that's what's happening. You're dwindling your pool to those that you are most comfortable with and those you know best. Okay, prime example, in 2020 and 2021, our first recruitment classes that we talked about tonight, 32% on average, 32% of those two classes, shout out to Lord of the Dings for these stats, 32% of those classes came from the state of Georgia. Just 32%. Almost 70% of prospects came from out of state. In 2021 and 2022, as the current classes sit, 63% of your commits are from the state of Georgia. And the good news for Georgia is, I would put Georgia on par with anybody. I know everybody loves Florida in terms of the prospects they put out, and they're great. Don't get me wrong. I know California does a great job. I know Texas does a great job. But right there in that top 5 discussion, right there in that top 3 discussion, is the state of Georgia year in and year out, especially for quarterback talents, which is the most important position on the field. They're going to be okay if things continue. I would imagine that recruiting opens up just a little bit here very, very soon. I would hope so. Good Lord. They're going to reevaluate it in April, and we'll see what happens. All right, our last rant of the night, and it's on Florida. You know I got to save my boy Dan Mullen for the end of the show. Got to save my boy Dan Mullen for the end of the show. So let's hit on him right now. I know the term that everybody wants to throw out on social media nowadays is transfer you, okay? They are slowly, and they're not making any bones about it, they are slowly creeping towards that. Let's run it down for you right now. Florida, currently in the 2021 class, they have the 13th ranked class in the country, okay? And I'm going to tell you right now, based off what I know, Terran Arnold is not going to save that class. He's not, okay? Terran Arnold, and we'll talk again more about him tomorrow, but that's a Bama-Georgia discussion, okay? It is a Bama-Georgia discussion, Florida on the outside looking in, okay? So Terran Arnold's not going to save this class. It's probably going to finish right around 13 to 15, okay? That's the cold, hard reality of what Florida's doing on the recruiting trail in high school. Now, in 2021, they have 5 transfers. They have 5 transfers coming in, 2 of which were high school 5-stars, okay? A-Rick Gilbert and the Bowman kid that was up at Clemson. They got him. They just had to get them after they've been touched up a little bit by other programs. So they're getting retread 5-stars in 2021. It didn't start there. They started it in 2020. They had the 9th ranked class in 2020. Shout out to Jervon Dexter. About the only reason they were that high. Okay? They had 7 transfers in 2020. 7. 3 of which were high school 5-stars. One of them, Lorenzo Lingard, didn't even make the 2 deep to begin the season for Florida. So not really putting them to great use at this point, okay? But they're getting talented football players after these talented football players have, for the most part, crapped out at other universities. Okay, A-Rick Gilbert, not the case. The Bowman kid, I don't even think really is the case. He looked great in the 4 or 5 touches he got at Clemson, but as soon as he started flirting with the transfer portal, Dabo's like, gone. We don't want you here. That's how Clemson rolls. If you don't want to be at Clemson, then you ain't going to be at Clemson. So that's why that kid left. And I still think they're both really good football players. But just because they're great football players doesn't mean every once in a while with these transfer types of things, you're not going to have 5-stars like Lorenzo Lingard that may never play for you, okay? That didn't do a great job at Miami before they came to your program. So that's the cold, hard reality. In Mullen's last 2 classes, he signed 12 transfers, 5 of which were former 5-stars. It's great. It's great for the University of Georgia, or University of Florida, excuse me. It's great. They got 5-stars in there, finally. We had to get them for the transfer portal, but they finally got them. And 4 5-stars in the 2021 class. All in all, 5 total. And in those 2 classes, he's only signed 2 high school 5-stars. A defensive back in this class and Jervon Dexter in last class. Marshall, I think is the kid's name, in 2021. Great football player. The only 5-star they got. Whereas on the other end, where, Georgia, right? Their only other competition point in the SEC as it currently stands. Georgia signed 4 5-stars in the 2020 class alone out of high school. And if you want to add in their 5-star transfer in JT Daniels, feel free to do so. They got 6 in the 2020 class alone, and they got 4 in the 2021 class. So whereas Florida's got 7 5-stars over the last 2 recruiting classes, 5 of which were transfers, Georgia's got 10 of them, where 9 of them were high school football players. Okay, hadn't been touched up by other programs, hadn't had issues, if you'll call them, at other programs, didn't have playing time concerns at other programs. They're fresh, they're green coming into the University of Georgia. In the Dan Mullen era, 2018 to present time at the University of Florida, and again, shout out to the Lord of the Dings right here on these. He classifies, and this is a good point by you, he classifies top players as the top 200 players, right? Those are the elite of elite. We do something very similar at SI All-American with a top 99, an SI 99. Extend that just a little bit to the top 200, okay? Florida signs an average of 6.25 of those top 200 players every single year since Mullen's been there. The highest commit ever was Jervon Dexter last year. We've already told you about that. He's never signed a quote-unquote top 10 prospect. He's had 3 classes where the highest ranked player was outside the top 25. 1 class with the highest ranked commit outside the top 20 or top 65. A lot of numbers coming to you here. But bottom line, he's not signing the elite of elite. He's recruiting at about a top 8 to top 15 ranking, which is great. It's also the way Georgia recruited under Mark Richt. For being 100% honest, it's the way Georgia recruited under Mark Richt. Kirby came in here, and you guys see the difference. You do. Year in and year out, you talk about how loaded and how talented the roster is. You talk about how there's very limited holes on a roster year in and year out. That wasn't the case under Mark Richt. That's apparently not the case under Dan Mullen at the University of Florida. So the difference is Kirby Smart's signing players in that top 200 at a clip of 58% per class. Dan Mullen signing them at 28% per class. That's a drastic difference. A drastic difference, which, to Dan's credit, which you guys don't hear me give Dan Mullen a lot of credit around here, but to Dan Mullen's credit, he's identified what his strengths are. His strengths are not going into a home in South Florida and sitting down talking to mom and dad, chatting it up over a cup of tea. Or worse, doing that over Zoom, because he can't show his fancy Jordans over Zoom, okay? He's not great at it. He has identified that. So what's he know he's great at? He knows he's great at proving to older players that are, a little bit of experience on the college football ranks and showing them that, look, hey, Rick, I can do with you what I just did with Kyle Pitts. I've got the proof. Come do it. Come let me show you, okay? And my whole roster's set up for you. You want to be the guy, hey, Rick, you can come be the guy. We ain't really got a quarterback to throw it to you as of now, whether it's Anthony Richardson or our boy Emory Jones. We don't know who's going to be throwing you the ball. But our roster's for you, man. You want to be the guy, we'll let you be the guy. We will throw you the ball 15, 20 times a game. He is good at that portion of, recruiting. I don't know how good he is at doing the cliche coach talk where it's, I'll make a man out of you. You come play for me, I'll make you a better man. You'll leave a better man than you came. Stuff like that. That's not what you're going to hear from this guy, I would imagine. So he has to go about recruiting these transfers because he knows he can land them. Now, the GOAT of recruiting pitches is Nick Saban. And I teased this one today. I didn't mean to save it till the end of the show, but I just now got it. We're just going to show you the audio of this. Obviously, if you haven't heard it by now, Nick Saban somehow was recorded on a Zoom recruiting pitch, if you will. And boy, he ain't doing nothing but rolling out the red carpet of facts right here. I mean, straight up facts.
History of college football the last 12 years. Won more championships. We won 6 championships in the last 11 years. We've been in the national championship game 8 out of the last 11 years. We've been in the playoffs 9 out of the last 11 years. We got more guys drafted than any school in the country. We had 64 guys playing in the league last year. The next school had 41. So we got way more players playing in the league than anybody else. So, everybody's going to tell you in recruiting, oh, don't go to Alabama. You can play at our school before you can play there. They got all these good players there. You won't be able to play. You can play at our place earlier. I think that's the worst stuff that people can tell you. First of all, when they tell you that, they're first of all insulting you. Because I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you if you couldn't play here.
All right. So, first of all, after watching myself, because the film guy grinds the tape on himself too. So when I get off one of these shows, I go back and I watch. I watch every second, sometimes multiple times, just to see what I'm doing right, what I'm doing wrong, how many times I said how ugly I looked, how fat I looked. I like to be a little self-critical on things like that because I know you guys are going to be. How many times I coughed and begged for water because I didn't drink enough water before the show. Things like that, right? I'm self-critical of myself. I say all right all the time. I realize that now. All right. When we watch film, all right is one of my words. I didn't realize I had a verbal tick from Nick, but I stopped that a little short. All right, because it was running a little bit long and it's a little bit monotonous. But what you get is apparently the recruiting pitch from Nick Saban is, let me read my wiki page right quick, because that's all he needs. We've been in the national championship 8 out of 11 years. All right. We put 69 guys in the NFL last year. Nice. 69 guys in the NFL over the last 10 years, whatever. Highest by anybody. Nobody else has more than 43. Okay, just boo, 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 boo. Punch you in the face with Alabama's greatness in forms of facts. And then at the end goes, oh, by the way, if anybody tells you you should come play for us because you ain't going to play at Alabama, that's an insult. That's an insult to you because we wouldn't be recruiting you if we didn't think you could play, obviously. But it's a detriment to their program, too, because they just told you they ain't as good as Alabama. Okay, I hope that I one day get to the level of greatness to where I can just roll out the fact sheet. You know, I've gone up 400 followers on Twitter in the last 2 weeks. I've gone up 3,000 subscribers in the last calendar year. I've got more engagement, yada, 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 yada. You should watch me. I hope one day I get that great, but I don't know if I'm ever going to get there. But Nick Saban's there, so he can do stuff like that. All right, we're a little bit short of 50 minutes, and I think we're just going to call it a day there. I've enjoyed the show tonight. Before you go, please like, subscribe, do all that good stuff here on the YouTube channel. If you are not already presently a member of our Patreon account, please subscribe. The link is in the bio, patreon.com/Brooks Austin. We got some great things going on out there. Shout out again to my boy SSL. The community loves you, dog. We'll see you when you get back tomorrow. Come through. I got a Terry Arnold film breakdown. I'm going to tell you why he's Richie LeCount on steroids. Right? Richie, my guy, Richie LeCount. This guy has an opportunity to be even better on the college level. And tomorrow night, I will show you exactly why. Appreciate